has changed. America has changed. If something were to happen tomorrow, how self-sufficient would you be? Could you grow your own food? Could you sustain your own livestock? Could you survive? This is the We Grow Our Show with Nick and Don. Nick and Don talk about everything from politics to planting. They cover techniques, methods, and tips on how to not only survive, but thrive. Visit the website at WeGrowOurs.com. Lock and load. This is the We Grow Our Show. Get your grow on.
Welcome to the We Grow Our Show.
Welcome.
Everything is awesome.
You almost got me that time. I almost wanted to sing it.
Oh gosh.
I thought I was only able to do that to you, but
no, I'm a master of inception as well.
Is that what it is?
I'm good in the dream, within the dream, within the dream.
Yeah.
Within the dream.
Well, everything is awesome.
Anyway, we've got a great show this week. An old friend of mine's going to visit us. Martial arts expert and copy repair extraordinaire.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about beating people up, right?
Yep. And kids for that matter.
Beating kids up. Great.
Well, one of my favorite things about Troy is he's just this real mellow dude. He doesn't raise his voice much, but when he's mad, you got to look out because the dude's vicious. I mean, he knows stuff. Like, he's a calm, easygoing guy, but he knows stuff.
Yeah.
And it was pretty funny. One day I was like, what are you going to do this weekend? This is before I really knew the guy. He's like, oh, I'm going to go beat up some kids. I'm like, oh, well, see you later.
Nice. Yeah.
He explained Monday that he taught martial arts on the side, and many a times I was scared to be his practice dummy out in the boxes in the back of the pro copy.
I always love learning. Martial arts. I did martial arts from the time I was a kid till about 12, 13 years old. I stopped. I had made it up in Isshinryu to be a brown belt. So I was pretty good. I did tournaments. I have won a ton of trophies and had a lot of fun. And then other things, I moved out here and got back into it, did Aikido. For a very short period of time, only a couple of years. And then I got into girls and video games. And
I was going to say, yeah, I wish that I would have got into martial arts instead of Diablo 1 and 2 and Halo.
Yeah, exactly.
And all
at the time it was Mario Brothers, but hey, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a little bit of a gap between us.
A little bit, yeah, apparently. Wow. So before we get Troy on, I want to just it's interesting. I found I don't know where I'm going with all this. I wanted to real quick talk about Ebola. Last week was the first confirmed case of Ebola in the U.S.
Did the guy die?
Well, the Israel news and some other countries says he has. I heard the CDC today says he's in critical condition and he has not died. So I don't know. I guess would be the appropriate answer for me to give you. I've seen conflicting sources inside and outside of the U.S. But I know, and this is going to be a week later from when we record. So
getting the news.
Yeah, we're getting the news a little late. Regardless of what happens or whether they find more cases in the U.S. or not, as preppers, I think we have to be careful. We're being looked at. There's been some actual journals, Washington Post type things that have gone out to some of these bloggers that are preppers. Mm-hmm. And they're talking about this Ebola thing. And I want to make sure that as preppers and even as conservatives or Republicans, and you know how much I love that word.
Yeah.
Right wingers, whatever you want to call it, that we're not out causing so much panic and
that we initiate martial law.
That we forget our if we give up our safety, we have to tread lightly.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? We don't give up our rights to give up our safety. I think it was Benjamin Franklin that said that, or you deserve neither. So just be careful out there talking to your non-prepper people and And be careful what you're writing or putting on your Facebook page that we need to go, have a lynch mob and do things. That's probably not the right way of looking at it. I know Ebola is dangerous. I'm scared for the families of people who have suffered with it. And I understand it's maybe more to it than what the government is telling us, but we don't want to be a tool that our government uses to take away more rights from us because of our reactions to it. Did I say that right?
I think that was a soft way of saying don't give them the excuse. Don't give them these guys did this, so we've got to come in with our tanks and our martial law for your safety.
Right.
You're don't poke the bear.
Yeah, just let calm heads prevail. Mm-hmm. This may be an issue. It may not be.
Now's a good time to dig in.
Yeah, we've got an election coming up too. Let's not give them any reasons to,
to suspend the Constitution.
I'm not even going to go that far. Just I don't trust our political system.
Yeah.
So just be careful. And I know this is coming in pretty late after the fact, and it'll be interesting to see what goes on. I try to keep posting a little bit on the We Grow Ours Facebook page, which is facebook.com/WeGrowOurs. And we'd love it if you came over and liked us.
We need friends.
Yeah. Well, I had some good Facebook conversations the other day. I actually had a person who I would say is very different from me politically that I learned a lot from. I just find it very interesting that those same people tend to threaten the livelihood of others when you're not doing things the way that they believe they should be done. So I think we have to be careful on both sides that we don't do that.
Yeah.
And this was about food.
Yeah. Well, I'm a self-proclaimed mass murderer of the cute and fluffy.
Right.
I don't apologize for what I do. I explain why what I do is better than what is available at stores, but sometimes that's not enough for some people.
Well, and I can't understand why somebody wants to come and say you shouldn't do that, but yet I'm going to kill you over it.
Yeah, and it
doesn't logically.
I've never understood that argument of I would rather eat people than an animal. That's one that I hear a lot. It's not really an argument. It's a statement, and quite frankly, it's asinine. And that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Because for one, if you're eating people, you're
a cannibal.
You're a cannibal. But okay, let's put aside the social, socially wrong part of it, the morality, if you will. If you are actively going out and finding people to eat.
But I don't think they're doing that.
But I'm saying that's the statement. That's the illusion to what would happen. It was like, I'd rather eat people instead of animals. Yeah. You can get sick off of that. The chances of transferring disease human to human is higher. There's, for one, if you eat too much people, you start.
Wow, where is this show going?
I know, it's like here. This is. Make sure if you're going to have cannibalistic tendencies that you eat a salad alongside of it.
I don't think that.
I'm just
saying being literal though.
But okay, when what's the first thing you think of? I'd rather eat people.
No,
okay,
it's not.
Then you come to me with that. And it's like, okay, so now you have to kill a person. You have to eviscerate and eat this person to make good on your threat.
Yeah. Well, that's all it is. It's an empty threat.
And then on top of it, most of the people that happen to be militant vegans are also atheists, which I have no problem with atheists. But if you're a militant vegan that's atheist, what are we if not part of the animal kingdom?
Ooh, that's a good argument.
It's like, okay, we're not allowed to eat other animals, though other animals eat other animals. You better go talk to those freaking lions, because that's all they eat. They don't have any salad in their diet.
Now, I got to remind people, too, hostelehair.com. If you go over there, there's Nick Haz's reply to the animal rights activist on there, and it's on YouTube.
You look so giddy right now.
It's because
you're so excited about that.
I know,
thing.
it's quite fun. I enjoyed recording that.
If you notice the camera shaking, he's laughing a little bit.
Yeah, it was funny. No,
Is that the one where the jet interrupted me like halfway through?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah.
So anyway, speaking of protecting yourself from cannibals, how's that for a segue?
I don't know, dude. It's a good thing Troy's not listening to this part before the thing. But anyway, without further ado, let's have on Mr. Neiman.
Things just got real. The drugstore is closed and the doctor is unavailable. What are you going to do? Stock your medicine cabinet and bug-out bag with Nature's Alternative essential oils. Visit mylavenderlife.com for all your essential oil needs.
All right, welcome back to the We Grow Our show. We've got a special guest, a friend of mine, Mr. Troy Neiman. How you doing today, Troy?
I'm doing great, Nick. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. I've been looking forward to this for a while. A little bit of background on Troy and I. We used to repair copy machines together, and when the boss wasn't looking, he'd show me the new move he was working on. I would hurt and he'd be happy. It was a good relationship. So Troy, what are you up to these days? You still teaching kids how to defend themselves?
Yep, I still have, actually, Nick, as you know, I used to have a commercial karate school, and that has since gone away, but I still have about 20 students that I teach as a private basis here in the Casa Grande area. It ranges from backyards to swimming pools to wherever I can get a flat place that's open. But yes, I still teach about 20 students.
And see, that to me sounds better and more personal one-on-one than being in a dojo surrounded by 20, 30 kids in a class. I think that somebody's going to get a lot more out of a one-on-one or a three-on-one than they would out of a class like that.
Very true, and it is. It's for me. It's been very freeing because I don't have the constraints of always having to worry about paying the rent.
Yeah.
And so we were able to go places that in a more commercial setting, I think are kind of limited because of the need every month to pay the mortgage, to pay the rent, and things like that. So I've kind of freed myself of that in kind of a backwards kind of way by no longer having the school. And so yes, very true. Because of that, we're able in the class to go places that you normally would not be able to go.
So what form do you teach?
Well, it's kind of a complicated answer, but basically I teach traditional ITF karate, Taekwondo. Taekwondo is Korean karate. And so generally my primary students are children, I believe, probably from ages, say, 10 to 17 or 18 are my primary students, a few adults. And I think that Taekwondo is a good fit for that because Taekwondo has kind of evolved into kind of a sport martial art. But with that, I'm able, the primary lessons I'm trying to teach these kids are self-confidence, some focus, and the ability to protect themselves within their age group. And so it's been a really good fit. So
it's not like arming 9-year-olds with the ability to gouge out eyes and
Well, I don't think Johnny's mom wants me to teach him how to break somebody's arm on a playground kind of thing.
I don't know. When I have kids, I'm bringing them to you to teach them all that stuff.
So the way I kind of, I don't know if justify or what the proper term is, but in my thought anyway is, the average, as an example, the average fifth grader is either at school or he's at home, and there's really no place in between. That he's either with his teachers or he's with his parents, and so his really need for self-defense is kind of limited. Just stops the schoolyard bully from pushing him against the wall and trying to take his lunch money, and really the bully either just wants to control him or he wants his lunch money. There really isn't any, I don't believe anyway, that there's any really lasting harm intended. And so we don't want that for our children. We want them to protect themselves. We want them to have the confidence to stand up to that. But that's really where it starts. From that, in my mind anyway. So if we fast forward 2 or 3 years, now that same child is, say, a freshman or sophomore in high school. The bullies are bigger. The amount of violence is a lot more. But truly, they're still either with their parents or at school. And the violence at school changes, but I don't believe really truly drastically so. And then for me, that next step then is 2 or 3 more years. Now they're an 18, 19-year-old person, and they're at the mall watching a movie that gets out at 11 o'clock at night. And I don't know about you, but, last time I saw that, it's a jungle out there. And they truly at that point, need to know serious, hardcore self-defense. And so that's kind of how I transition my students and how I kind of evolve it. My adult students we kind of start at that point where I try to introduce Taekwondo and bring it back, I think, in a way to its traditional base in self-defense. So that's kind of where I go.
Well, out of the few moves that you showed me, I felt just a little bit more empowered and kind of cool. And that I took them home and I showed, the one of my favorites was just the simple one that a waitress could pick up, that, some half drunk loon is kind of grabbing her wrist or whatever, and she still wants a tip, so she doesn't want to level the guy. And that trick where, she had complete, you have complete control over her wrist just real quick. And obviously, with a microphone, I won't be able to demonstrate that, but.
You're absolutely right. One of the things, it was kind of interesting when I first became a black belt, it was kind of assumed that I instantly became the expert in all this. And so I really tried to become one. And one of the things I really learned quickly was it's about control. It's with children, as adults, we control them by grabbing them. As men, we can try to control women by grabbing them. We try to control them with our voice. We try to, if you can picture, some boyfriend with a young girl says, "I can't believe you dressed that way." It's a function of control. It's not, so at the most extreme end, that turns into violence. But, it can start as something as simple as, you're absolutely right, as a waitress, if I'm that patron, if I just kind of touch her wrist, I'm trying to control her for that moment. And so, to me, self-defense is maintaining your own control and not allowing anybody to take it. It doesn't always have to be a result of somebody on the ground bleeding, but maintaining your own control.
Well, then it's a party.
That's true.
So now you talked about another form where you're actually using different tools that were meant for farming that have been somewhat weaponized. And I don't know enough about them to even say what form it is. So would you mind going into that a little bit?
Well, not at all. It's, depending on who you talk to, kind of the beginning of what we know of martial arts, many people feel started in the island of Okinawa. Okinawa is an island just off the coast of Japan. It's part of the home islands, but the native Okinawans are not considered Japanese by the Japanese people. And so going back into the era of the shoguns and things like that, edged weapons were reserved for the ruling class at that time, the Japanese. And everybody else, to be caught in possession of an edged weapon was for death. And so, and as we all know, human nature is what it is. The good guys and the bad guys doesn't change just because a group came in and outlawed edged weapons. And so the average peasant / subsistence farmer / subsistence fisherman used what they had on hand to protect themselves. If you look at, the big movie going on right now, I think, isn't there like a Ninja Turtle rebirth going on right now?
Yeah.
You look at all the Ninja Turtle weapons, the sais, the kamas, those are all traditional Okinawan agriculture weapons, and not weapons, but tools that the peasants at the time turned into weapons. As an example, a sai, which is kind of the pointed fork, was actually a rice planting tool that they used in the paddies. The kamas, which are kind of the short-bladed sickles, were literally rice harvesting tools that they would, use in the paddies. And so these peasants used the tools they had on hand and turned them into weapons. Even an oar that the fishermen became an edged wooden weapon. And so they literally took whatever they had and created a system from that.
Very cool.
The more I look at where our current government is going, ball and powder is going to be is under attack. It's threatened. Our ability to carry pistols is probably
Our Second Amendment rights are going away.
Exactly. Well, I mean, you look at a place like Australia, they've outlawed pistols, and so only long guns are allowed. Well, there's not that many people carrying a long gun into a restaurant, and when they are, they're usually special. But anyway, these are good things to know, because even me, I usually carry a pistol, but if I'm working on a copy machine and then I walk out and there's a no gun sign on the door, I'm not going to carry a pistol into a customer's office. And now I'm without a gun. These are things that, do you know any tricks with a screwdriver? Because I've got one of those handy.
I think I've practiced it a little bit with a screwdriver. Yeah, it's amazing. But even though, and we laugh at that, but there is, because if you think about a screwdriver, it's a long pointed weapon. It's really not that much different than a scythe. With enough force, Nick, you're the engineer. How much, if we reduce the area with the same amount of force, what does that do to the power?
Puncture's a lot easier.
That's true. And so a lot of those weapons work the same way. One of the things I found interesting is, for a long time, I learned weapons forms or katas, and I really didn't worry about the application. And then just in the last 2 or 3 years, I started worrying more and more, why are we doing this? What was the purpose? And it's amazing how, truly there's a reason why these martial art weapons are still weapons. They are lethal in every sense of the word. I think because they're old, I think sometimes they are overlooked, and because they're simplistic, people can discount them. But the reality is, in the same way that a knife is a lethal weapon, a sai or a kama or a tampa are all still lethal weapons. I find them really interesting to study.
Yeah, I don't know. If somebody busts out a set of kamas in a dark alley, I'm going the other direction.
Most definitely, yes.
So
I think kamas are probably the single most lethal weapon I know. They're very lethal.
Now, was it you that was telling me a story about your instructor almost losing his arm from one?
One of my so yes, if you think about how can I describe this? When you're showing room, how you kind of do an outer block to inner block or inner block to outer block, that kind of cyclic clear.
Uh-huh.
Well, with a live blade kama, that if you do that same motion, that live blade is coming really close to your arm. And so my instructor's instructor actually, as he was doing that, did a clear with his kamas. The blade hooked into his arm, and he literally pulled it through the length of his arm.
How?
And he almost bled out before he could get to a hospital. But so they are, like I said, they are just scary lethal because of the way they're constructed.
Yeah, you can even process your chickens with them.
That's right. So,
well, that's pretty cool. Now, Troy, do you have a website or anything for the people of Casa Grande that want to get down there and get some training?
No, I do not, but if I may, I can give you my phone number.
Sure.
It is 520-840-0781.
I'll make sure and get that in the show notes for everybody as well. So, Troy, a lot of our audience, I know you teach kids, and I'm sure our audience has kids. I grew up doing some Isshin-Ryu and then moved into Aikido, and the mental lessons that it teaches you are amazing. I think everybody should get involved in some form of martial arts. But as you were saying, as you become an adult, things change a little bit, and you actually need to use this for self-defense. A lot of our listeners are preppers and that type of thing. What is a good place for an adult to start, or what should they be looking at? What type of martial art? How would they go get their training? Where do they start?
Well, that's a very good question. And so what I tell people all the time is really to kind of look deep and see truly what they're looking for. From my experience anyway, for someone who's looking to do something with their son or their daughter, or as a family unit, and that's how I actually got started. My daughter and I were doing it together when she was a young child, or something even as a cardio type environment. I would go to the more traditional Taekwondo or the karate schools, and literally, it's going to be Japanese karate, like you said, the Okinawan styles are very good for that also. But I would stay with more of the Taekwondo, or the traditional karate. Separate from that now, as an adult looking for self-defense, and by self-defense, I mean truly devastating attacks for somebody who attacks me. I would look more in the Kempo world, American Kempo, Chinese Kempo, maybe Hapkido are the ones I'm familiar with. And those are really, truly, while they may be a traditional art in the way that they're taught, the mindset is more truly human combat as opposed to an art or a sport. There is no sport application to breaking somebody's arm. Right. There's no sport application to an eye hook.
I think they call that game over.
Yeah, truly. As a matter of fact, I remember that. I distinctly remember this, and this may make sense to your listeners too. One of the very first techniques I learned that really brought that home to me was the attack really quickly. It was just a wild punch. But the defense was a block hooking the eye and pulling out the eye. And I thought, I thought to myself, my expression must have said it, I wasn't sure I could do that. And my instructor stopped right there and said, Troy, you need to decide at what point in your life you could do that. Otherwise, you might as well not even learn it. And so in my own world, in my own home, there's a hallway that goes down to the bedrooms. And so mentally, I know that if somebody steps 1 foot down that hallway, I could rip their eyes out without even blinking an eye. I mean, it wouldn't bother me a bit. I could care less, and I could pull that trigger, and off it goes. I would literally pull that mental trigger, I guess. Up to that point, they can have anything else in the house. I don't care. As long as I don't walk down that hallway and hurt my dog, I could care less. Right. But that's kind of how I had to mentally change over. So those kind of arts, I would say, are more the Kempos, Aikidos, and those type of arts. Those kind of schools oftentimes are harder to find because they're a much more selective group. Not selective, focused group, I should say. The third style is has become very popular, are the sport arts, the UFC, MMA kind of things. And you'll see those as the Muay Thai boxing, and things like that. And those are, they're wonderful arts, and they're great sports, but to me, they're kind of still a sport. Anytime you put a rule into it, it's a sport.
Yeah. Hey, no eye gouging. That doesn't fly.
That's exactly right.
Well, I know when my wife was looking around, one of her things was getting mugged in a parking lot and kind of the anti-rape prevention, things like that. She ended up with the Krav Maga. Now, part of that was we have one real close, but that's another one of those arts where you've really learned to hurt people is what it comes down to. She's getting good at it, but unfortunately for me, right?
And it's kind of interesting. And that seems like, look, I've never studied that. That looks like one of the cool ones. My brother is very active in the Kung Fu world. And so, forgive me, what I know about Kung Fu, I learned from watching, TV, Bruce Lee. Yeah. But it's more of to me, what I know of Kung Fu is that it's very much of a self-defense art, a very beautiful one, very, very traditional. But the techniques are really, truly based on self-defense.
Right.
And so there is the Kung Fu arts also.
See, all I know about Kung Fu is what I learned from Kung Fu Panda, and I'm pretty sure that wasn't exactly technically correct. But it was a fat guy kicking ass, and I was inspired. Sorry.
Now, Troy, you mentioned katas and learning katas, and growing up again, I told you I did the Isshin-Ryu, and katas was big. It's another Okinawan art, and I found that really transfers over into my adult life in many ways. But one of the things is just the mental training it teaches you. That when you're not actually out there physically training, you're assessing scenarios, you're going through things in your head, and you're mentally preparing yourself for what could happen, or as you said, where that person in your house, when they cross that barrier and what that barrier is, how you're going to react. And you know that prior to them doing that. So if somebody does cross that step in your hallway, you have zero doubt in your mind what your body will do because you've thought about it, you've gone through it, just like with the katas.
Absolutely correct. Right now there is and you probably are aware of it too, the usefulness of the kata, practicing the kata, is kind of questioned right now. And the traditionalists, like what you studied and what I studied, view the kata being the center of all arts, because it's the practicing, it's the mental aspect, it's that putting yourself in that place where you can do these things without even thinking about it and doing them correctly, and then taking those same motions and applying them to the art itself. That to me, that's the art of martial arts to me, and I truly enjoy that. It's a great, as you know, it's a great mental workout. It's a great physical workout, but it sometimes is a hard translation into self-defense.
Right.
It takes years of practice to be able to, sometimes for people to make that transition from what they learned in a kata to actual self-defense. It's kind of, I know personally, you could show me the dance steps of a dance 100 times, and I would never be smooth or graceful. I'm just not that kind of person.
You'd still be the rhythmless white guy?
Yeah, truly. But it's the same thing with a kata. Some people can view a kata and really understand it and flow with it and learn from it, and some people just go through the motions. And so I think for the styles that are kata-based, oftentimes like, the Okinawan styles, it really takes I don't know if years is the right, I don't want to imply that it takes years and years, but I think it takes more time to truly understand it and get the benefit out of it from a self-defense perspective, as opposed to some of the more harder styles, the Kempos, American Kempo, the Chinese Kempos, things like that, if that makes sense.
It does to me.
Yeah, I don't like Muay Thai. I don't think they do katas. I think they knee people.
No,
yeah.
Here's how we fight. Go.
Yeah.
Yeah, my friend, he goes to Muay Thai, and it's really fun to watch the spinning, jumping kicks and punching and stuff. There's a lot of flailing, but there was no like grabs and throws and stuff like that. And, I don't know, I think I'd rather learn what you showed me, the brief lessons in the boxes of copy machines.
Yeah, and it changes. I want, how is your wife's class set up? Is it more of a coach student, or is it more of a instructor, instructor / mentor / student? I don't know about a lot. I know a lot of the MMA gyms. It's more of a coach to participant type relationship, as opposed to more the martial arts instructor, sensei student kind of relationship.
Yeah, the mentor. I'd say it's more of a coach, I think. I haven't done a whole lot with her. I went to one class and watched. Mm-hmm. But I mean, they certainly get into things right away. The first class she's there, they're teaching grabs and how to escape holds and how to knee and where to knee. And, it was pretty neat, but it definitely seems to be more of a coach type thing than when I grew up and I had a sensei that was your mentor. That's what you wanted to be like.
Mm-hmm. And as you know, even like the symbolism involved kind of shows that too, as, and Nick, just as an example, like when I bow to someone I'm going to spar with, I keep my eyes up and I'm watching, I'm being respectful, then I got my eyes kind of bad. When my students bow to me, they bow face down, because the relationship is that they know that I will watch out for them, and they can surrender that moment of watchfulness as they bow to me. And so I kind of like that, I guess almost a ceremonial part of it. And, I enjoy that. I enjoy that feeling, but it isn't necessarily self-defense. And so it's really, like I said, it really kind of depends on what somebody. It's all good. It's one of those nice things about this whole conversation is it's all good. It's
right.
just a little slice of the pie that you want to try.
Yeah,
I don't know of any bad styles. I don't know of any bad. It's all good information, no matter what part of you try. But there definitely are there's different niches involved.
Yeah. Well, I remember the one video that you showed me of the of the Japanese archers, where it was like this very long process to draw the bow, and it was more of the the process. It wasn't so much focusing on hitting the target. It was proper holding of the bow, the form, all of these things. And at the end of the day, I'm like, just give me a compound bow,
Well, and you're absolutely right. In that situation, the beginning students can spend 3 or 4 years before they're allowed to even draw the bow. They spend that time, just not sure doing what, but it's kind of interesting. In Japanese archery, the bows are about 6.5, 7 feet long. And so if you picture the average Japanese person, that's quite they hold it. It's asymmetrical, so they hold it in the bottom third, and they draw the bow from over their head, and then as they expand the arms, the bowstring slips through their fingers. So they don't, as opposed to the European bows, where it's just pulled back and just pulled back and let go. So in a European bow, archers wear forearm protectors. The Japanese archery, they wear shoulder protectors because the bowstring will come back and hit them in the shoulder.
Wow. Now I have to look up on YouTube. I have to look up Japanese archers. I've never seen that.
And so, it's the thing I find kind of interesting about weapons, and I'm not even sure what the correct term is. There's really only 2 places in the world. Number one, I think bow and arrow came right after rock, paper, scissors as far as weapons. Literally fist, rock, spear. Fist, rock, spear, bow and arrow. And so it's one of those universal weapons. But only 2 places in the world truly have longbows. England, from, good old Robin Hood days, so approximately, truly approximately, I don't remember when the War of Roses was, say about 1400s. And literally on the opposite side of the world, the Japanese used longbows also. So I find that kind of interesting that literally a world apart, they came up with the same technology.
It was all the aliens, Troy. They showed them everything at the same times. I'm kidding. Well, Troy, thank you so much for joining us. We'll get your phone number on the show notes. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, and look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
What will you do when your stored supplies run out? Are you prepared? Hostile Hair provides equipment and education you need to control your own infinite food supply. We have live food storage systems, rabbits, quail, and other urban livestock for any situation and strategy. Don't be limited by what's on the shelves. Get started with an infinite food source today. Get prepped, stay fed with Hostile Hair. Call 480-331-3761 or visit hostilehair.com.
Man, what a great interview. I say that about all of them, but I really like Troy. He's actually the person who trained me in copy repair. Well, not 100%, but
Copy Repair Ninja.
Yeah, Copy Repair Ninja is. Hey, little known fact that we're only 3 shootings away from having it called from going postal to going copy repair tech. So be nice to your printer techs, everybody.
Where does computer tech fall in on that one?
I don't know. Y'all are a bunch of nerds. No, it's cool. I've spent a lot of time delivering copy machines with Troy, and it's funny. He actually managed a branch in San Diego. He had like 30 techs under him.
Yeah. And
then came here, was successful here, and then opened his own martial arts studio. And was doing great, and he had a lot of students. He had everything going for him, and then 2008 rolls around, and just
people stop paying for things like that. Well,
yeah, it's the first thing that goes: a gym membership and your karate and all that.
I grew up and taking karate, and I think hopefully you got this out of the interview. If you've got kids, it's a really good thing mentally for them, as well as physically. You're not sitting in front of video games playing karate. You're out there doing it, and there's a huge mental aspect to it. And I certainly respect his opinion as to where to start with that. If you're an adult, you've got different goals. Mm-hmm. That may not be the art for you, but it's certainly not going to hurt to go with your kids to these things too.
Yeah.
Get you in shape. And I shouldn't talk because I do need to go back. And my wife is back in Krav Maga. So I got to go keep up with her apparently because she's going to kick my butt.
Yeah.
The redhead knowing Krav Maga, I'm scared.
Yeah, you should be. I've seen the fire in her eyes when she looks at you when you make certain comments.
Heck yeah.
And I see the bruises you try to cover up with those big sunglasses. So you might need to up your training there, boss.
Yeah. No, I think everybody needs to go out and we live in an uncertain world with bad people.
Yep. I mean, as long as people are on this planet, there will be good and evil mixed.
Yeah. So
and there's no, and even good people have lapses in judgment and will do bad things.
yeah, and it's no different than if you're a gun-toting guy out there or gal and you carry all the time, you need to go train.
Yep.
Well, you're always carrying your fists. You're always carrying your feet. You got those. Go train with them. Even if it's just a couple of times a year, go learn a new thing that you can do because that gun might not always be there.
Exactly.
And I think that women especially, and I believe that women are equals.
Yes.
So I'll get that out there, but women need to go take an anti-rape course, take a self-defense course, learn what you can do because, again, there's bad people out there and they will take advantage of what they perceive to be a weaker person.
Speaking of that, I saw a Facebook post of a device that is anti-rape.
Mm-hmm.
And I
did it look like a birth control?
Kind
option?
of. It looked like a cervical cap.
Yeah, I saw that.
But this thing has 4 barbs in it.
Yeah, I saw
like
that.
fish hook barbs. And it basically, I'm doing the hand motion here, but it's deployable via a tampon device.
Yes.
It kind of
Have you seen the movie Teeth?
No.
All right. Enough said. If you haven't, go watch it. It'll kind of explain what this device does.
I don't even want to know.
Yeah, well, you don't, but
the conversation that I had was the lady's like, well, in a third world country, this would be great. Because, my comment was, I believe that a rapist should endure as much pain as possibly given to them.
Yeah.
And this device would do it. But the girl still has to be violated in order for this thing to work.
Exactly.
Honestly, I'd rather have my wife with a can of mace and a pistol in her hand and the knowledge to do what she needs to without those things than to have some guy get that far before he gets punished for his actions.
And that's another thing. If you don't believe in guns and you don't carry a gun, man, that pepper spray, it is effective. In fact, I think pepper spray is probably more effective in most situations than guns are.
Because you don't have that thought of, oh, do I want to kill this guy?
If I ever drew my gun, I would never have that thought. And I think that's one of the things that
you and I aren't indecisive.
And firearms training go hand in hand. It's that mental thing. You know that once you pull your gun, you know where that threshold is. You know where the line in your hallway, in Troy's example, is the same thing when you do gun training. You know if you have to pull that gun out, you are willing to pull the trigger. You've crossed that point in the hallway. You're willing to do it, and you know what the result is. And hopefully you know your rights there shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, but again, I think if you're not going to carry a gun, pepper spray. I mean, we're talking self-defense.
Get the stuff with the blue dye in it.
That's what
so
Angie
cool.
carries. My brother-in-law got it for me, and she carries it. So
here you go, Don, just in case you get raped.
No, it's hey, I've used pepper spray.
Have you really?
Yeah, I had a guy that followed me into a parking lot and parked behind me so I couldn't get out, and came up and banged on my door and stuff at a Checker down on 7th Street or O'Reilly or something.
You're kidding me.
No, he was gonna, I cut him off in the suicide lane apparently or something. I don't know what I did, to be honest, but he was mad, and I rolled my window down a little bit, and he came up and looked at me straight in the eyes, and I pepper sprayed his ass. And I had a gun with me, but I didn't want to shoot him. There was another option right there, and I was in fear. He was a pretty big dude. He seemed angry. I wasn't going to fight him. I had pepper spray.
A little?
Well, no, that came later, and I learned the consequences of pepper spray. So I sprayed him, And he went straight down on the ground. He couldn't see. He got snot coming out everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy was in bad shape. And I kind of did a 30-point turn, got my car out of there and drove down the road. I didn't realize that I had a little bit that had kind of gotten on my hand.
Oh gosh.
Then on my steering wheel. So I rubbed my eye driving down the road because I had an itch. Then my face was on fire. So I pulled over, went to the restroom, washed up the best I could, and then I peed.
Oh no.
Yeah. Soap does not get that stuff off.
Oh no. No.
I learned that if you do have to, use pepper spray, don't touch your face. Don't go pee. Wait about a week before you do anything. And if you're
That's a long time to hold it in.
If you're lucky enough to be married, ask her for help, for goodness sakes. I mean, I had my hands on soaking them in tomato juice and milk and trying to do anything to neutralize that stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And that was a couple of little drops.
Oh, that dude that you put down is, oh man.
I left.
So I was like, probably 9 or 10. My babysitter had what I thought was a garage door opener on her keychain.
Oh no.
And I reached up and I pushed the button on it and it sprayed it up into the air and right into a vent that was spraying down at me. And, that was the word. It was just like overspray. It wasn't even like a direct
Now, was that
shot.
mace at that time or was it pepper spray?
I think it was the cloud of spray. So it wasn't like it wasn't liquid. It was, atomized pepper spray.
Yeah.
But
It was probably like a mace or tear gas type stuff.
it freaking worked, whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
It'll put a 9-year-old down, that's for sure.
I had a buddy that was taking too long in the bathroom once, so I sprayed that stuff under the door.
Oh no.
Yeah. He got out.
Oh, that's just, you're just so, why?
Hey, those were college days.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. But no, so self-defense comes in many forms. Martial arts is one of them. I think everybody should look into it. And I really appreciate Troy's input on that and his expertise.
And if you're in the Maricopa, Casa Grande area, or even Tucson, even in the South Valley, he's a guy that he's patient and he will work with you and you will learn.
Very cool.
So, well, that's pretty much all the time we got this week, right?
Sure. It's a podcast. We do whatever we want. Last week we went 20 minutes over.
Oh, that's true. Well, this week I'm not that interesting or interested. So screw you all. I'm going home.